Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is a guide for round 8 of the Manufacturer Series exhibition season. Let's get this started. Bring yourself to the left side of the track and brake before you reach the 150 meter mark. You'll be braking hard for a while, and once you start to turn in, slowly start to ease off of the brakes. You want the car to quickly rotate while you're still slowing down, and once you get the car pointing where you want to go, that is when you start to fully accelerate. Bring yourself to the left and brake as you reach the 50 meter mark. Don't use all of your braking power, just bring yourself to the right side of the track. Start to turn in when the wall on the right straightens up, and do some throttle control so you don't end up hitting the wall on the right. When the wall on the left straightens up, that is when you turn in. Take this turn flat out. Now for this left turn, you want to ease off all the throttle as you're turning in. Just be nice and careful when you start to fully accelerate. Bring yourself to the right and do a quick burst of braking before you reach the 50 meter mark. Brake hard for a very short moment. Quickly ease off of the brakes. Be nice and patient with your throttle input. You might have to do a little extra throttle control so you don't end up hitting the wall on the left. This left turn can be taken flat out. This right turn can be taken flat out as well. Just get nice and close to the walls without making contact with them. You're going to brake just after you pass the 100 meter board. Get as close as you can to the apex. Do a lot of throttle control, a little bit of braking if necessary to set yourself up for this final turn. Get the car pointing where you want to go as soon as you can so you can quickly get on the throttle. But that is pretty much it for this lap guide. Let's go ahead and talk about the strategies. For the qualifying session, you're going to have 10 minutes to try to get a good qualifying time. Slipstream is going to be essential here since you have a long main straight, so that's where you're going to want to try to get the slipstream so you can reach the top speed of your vehicle and shave off a load of time. Just be aware that you're going to be going even faster than the east outer loop variation, because in this variation you're entering the main straight from a medium speed corner, whereas from the east outer loop you're entering the main straight from a hairpin. So you'll see why it gets a little awkward, and this is going to happen towards the second half of the main straight. So the car behind me, which is a Subaru, they are under my slipstream. I obviously have no slipstream because there's no one in front of me. So eventually I'm going to be getting close to hitting my top speed, but with the slipstream from me, the Subaru is going to end up catching up to me, especially as we go up this uphill section, and this is where they're going to have to end up overtaking me. So this is what I mean where it gets a little awkward, because you might be forced to give away your position so the faster car can go through, but then you can try to tuck into their slipstream so you can go faster, especially as you go through the twistier bits of the track and eventually as you're about to start your next qualifying lap. And if you're in the slipstream, please brake earlier than usual because you're going much faster, so you need extra braking distance. And you just want to make sure that you don't end up punting the car in front of you or end up braking way too late to the point where you ruin your own qualifying lap. Now at this point, this is where I would start to mention the jump out and jump back in strategy, but the way that this qualifying session is, you're actually not going to want to do that. The tire wear is low enough so you don't have to worry about tire wear, and because slipstream is so important, you want to try to stay within someone's slipstream so you can go even faster. And because you do your outlap a lot slower than an actual lap, you're going to just want to try to stay out as long as possible. So this means trying to get the squeakiest clean laps possible, and yes, for the millionth time, trying to stay in the slipstream. So to summarize this qualifying section of the guide, stay under the slipstream, and do one long qualifying stint. And stay under the slipstream. So this video is a bit of a long one, so I want to quickly summarize it for those who don't have time to watch the whole thing. Your goal is to fuel save as much as you can, as this is a no-stop race. You'll be short shifting, trying to stay under the slipstream at all times, and you'll also be adjusting the fuel mapping. You can adjust the fuel mapping as you approach the start-finish line of a new lap, as you approach the first and the final hairpins. You can also adjust the field mapping as you are right behind someone, since you don't want to pass them until the very end of the race. Once again, your goal is to fuel save as much as possible. Use 11% of fuel per lap or less. Assuming you don't do any sort of fuel saving, you'll lose around 15 seconds from the pit laws as you go refuel. So you want to try to avoid that at all costs. Just try to make your fuel last all 9 laps by doing the fuel mapping, staying under the slipstream at all times, and short shifting. For this race, your goal is to save as much fuel as possible and try to go for a no stop. It's not going to be an easy thing to do because you need to stay under the slipstream, you need to short shift, and you need to constantly adjust the fuel mapping. Okay, maybe not constantly adjust, but you will need to actually adjust the fuel mapping as you go throughout the race. This is one of those races where you do not want to qualify first place because you're not getting any slipstream since there's no one in front of you, of course. So you're going to have to do a little more fuel saving by short shifting a bit more and adjusting the fuel mapping a bit more as well. If you happen to qualify second place, you can just stay right behind first place, do the short shifting, fuel mapping adjustments, and even a bit of throttle control to make sure that you can keep up with them and save a lot more fuel that way. If you're going for the no stop, your goal is to use 11% of fuel per lap or less. So you can stay under the slipstream, so you can save even more fuel, and you can potentially have even extra fuel so you can push a bit more towards the very end. If you qualify second, again, you can just stay right behind first place for the entire duration of the race. Just wait until you go through the final corner on the final lap, and that way you can get the slipstream. You pass them, you still have a bit of extra fuel to burn, and you can easily win the race that way. Another thing I would like to note, not relating to fuel saving, try not to hit the walls because that will slow you down quite a bit, and that can open up for others to make a move on you. So go back to the fuel saving. The way I do it, at least with the Viper, I'm shifting when the bar on the bottom of the screen is around 25 to 50% full. And I'm always doing this no matter whether I'm in the slipstream or not. You'll also need to adjust the fuel mapping if you want to try to make the no stop possible. So by pressing plus or minus on the Logitech G923 or G923, or by pressing left or right on your D-pad on the DS4 controller, you can adjust the multifunction display on the bottom right hand corner of the screen, and one of those options will be the fuel mapping. So as you see right now, as I approach the last 2 turns, I adjust it so I can go all the way to 6, so I'm using less power, but at the same time I'm fuel saving even more. So as I adjust the last 2 corners, that is where I adjust the fuel mapping. I also adjust it as I approach the start finish line because I'm already close to my top speed, and then I adjust it again as I approach the first hairpin. And once again, this is because I'm already close to my top speed and I'm using a lot of revs, so I'm trying to reduce a bit of that engine power so I don't end up dumping a bunch of fuel when I don't need to do so. And as you see right now, there's 2 cars that are just hanging out behind me, taking advantage of my slipstream, so they're going to be fuel saving more than I will be. So it's going to be extra important to try to stay under the slipstream and not be the one leading the pack. So skip on over to the end of the race. I eventually ended up in the back of this mini pack, and I was able to fuel save a little more, which means that I can start to push the car a bit more. On some laps, I was able to use less than 11% of fuel per lap, so that gives me an extra bit of flexibility so I can save it all until the very end of the race, where I can easily just go faster than this Aston Martin and quickly catch up to the Subaru, who is not under the slipstream, but unfortunately it was a little too late. But this should give you an idea of how the no stop will work. It's not easy, but it is possible to do. You basically need to do a lot of short shifting, stay under the slipstream at all times, and do quite a bit of fuel map adjustments. And another thing I would like to note is that if your car is not good at fuel saving, like the Hyundai Genesis, the Ford Mustang, the Toyota 86, and those are just a couple of the cars that are not good at fuel saving, then the zero stop is going to be even harder to pull off. And at this point, because the no stop seems to be the best way to go about this race, don't feel bad about skipping this race, because once again, this is a fuel saving race, and if your car is not good at fuel saving, then you're going to be in a heap of trouble if you end up participating in this race. And that strategy is the faster one out of the two, the second one being the one stop. And we're going to take a look at why the one stop is slower than the zero stop. So this is my one stop run, and in this race I did not fuel save at all. I was just revving the heck out of the car, and I was using around 14 to 15% of fuel per lap. And at the end of lap 6, I will be forced to go to the pit stop and refuel, since I do not have enough fuel to make it to the next lap. So as you see on the top left corner of the screen, I am 10 seconds ahead of second place, and second place and the others are going for the no stop. So they're obviously going slower, and I have to go refuel now. So I'm going to be refueling for quite a while. And don't forget, when I entered the pit stop, they were 10 seconds ahead. Now, as I exit the pit stop, they caught up to me, they passed me, and they're going way faster than I am. So it's going to take a while for me to catch up to them. Pretty much at the hairpin, I'm going to end up going at the same pace as them, because with the long straight, they're going at the top speed, and I'm barely just trying to speed up to try to play catch up. So the pit loss will depend on how much you have to refuel, and how much you have to refuel will depend on your car's fuel efficiency and how you end up fuel saving. If you don't fuel save, you obviously have to refuel a lot more. And in this case, I didn't do any sort of fuel saving, and I ended up losing about 15 seconds. So that is a pretty big pit loss, and I'm just trying to play catch up now. Now in this case, or in this race, I do end up catching up to third and second place, but not to first place. In this race, I was about 1 second off from first place, but that was with only 3 other cars. Now imagine you yourself refuel, you come out of the pits, and now you're pitting out onto 19 other cars. So now you got a bit of a problem here, because now a bunch of cars have passed you. You have to try to retake positions to get back to where you were when you entered the pit stop. And if anyone is fuel saving, they're going to hold you up as you go through the twistier parts of the track. And that's going to make it a lot more difficult for you to regain any positions that way. That also doesn't include any wall collisions you go through and any potential penalties that you end up collecting. And that's where the one stop really starts to fall apart. So at the end of the day, which strategy should you choose? Part of that is going to depend on the split that you're usually in. So if you're towards the top split, so A+ people, then you're most likely going to end up going for the no stop. If you're in a lower split lobby, then you're most likely going to see more people going for the one stop. So people are going to end up refueling, and you just want to try to do your fuel saving, at least stay under the slipstream, and try to do some short shifting if possible. If you're in the lower split again, then I honestly wouldn't suggest doing the fuel mapping unless if you do a bit of practice and know that you can handle adjusting the fuel mapping while doing the race. If you can't, then just don't bother with it. Just focus on short shifting and staying under the slipstream. That way, when it's time to refuel, you don't have to refuel as much, and you can potentially jump a couple positions that way. But that is pretty much it for this guide. Hopefully this helps you out a bit. This is actually one of those races where I would suggest going into the lobbies that are doing these practice races just to try to practice your strategy out. But anyways, that is pretty much it from me. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. So this is Mr. MCA, wishing you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.